Okay.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited that we have Bob Myers joining us today. My name is Amy Bradfield. I'm the Director of Education and Member Services of the Historical Society of Michigan. And I am this coordinator, the state coordinator for Michigan History Day. And Bob and I are going to be speaking with you, and I'll let Bob introduce himself when he starts with his. But we're going to be speaking to you about some tips and tricks we've come across from our various experience. Bob has served as a judge for Michigan History Day, and it's really helped. He's really helped me with the program in the past couple of years. So some of the things we see over and over, and we write up on our little notes to students, we thought, let's put them in a thing that we can hopefully get to a broader audience and help you when you're writing, not only for your Michigan History Day project, but kind of writing academically. So Bob, take it away.
Okay, doing mine first here, huh? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this is about passive voice and tightening up your writing, how to get your writing concise and very clear, because in your projects, of course, you are limited on the number of words you can use. And so this is a way to get rid of the passive voice, make your writing more clear, and tighten it up so that you can make every word count and everybody will think that you're the coolest nerd in your whole school. So, all right, passive voice. What is passive voice? Well, passive voice is writing that turns the object of the action into the subject of the sentence. So like the critter here, it's kind of passive. All right, so let's give you an example of passive voice. The ball was thrown by the girl. Right, so the ball is the object of the action, but it becomes the subject of the sentence. So we're using 7 words in that, and it gets kind of dull. So we can change it very easily to active voice. The girl threw the ball, right? 5 words, and it's active, it's direct, and it's shorter, right? So here's another example. Why was the road crossed by the chicken? Well, I guess the sentence is grammatically accurate, but you can tell it's awkward and it's passive, uses too many words. So let's try something else. Why did the chicken cross the road? It's active, it's more interesting, and it uses fewer words. So you can see you're tightening up your writing and you're making it clearer. It's easier to read, easier to understand. It makes things active. All right, now, how do you detect passive voice? If you're writing or you're reading somebody else's writing, how do you know if it's passive? How do you know if it's active? Well, there's a really easy way, and I call it finding the is words. So what are the is words? Well, is words are is, are, was, were, be, being, been. Those are the is words. And if you work at this, something that I found is that, and there's another is word, I have found that in reading writing, they start to jump out at you as you go through it and you try to eliminate the is words, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. After a while, it becomes automatic and you start to see those. They just jump out at you on the page and you say, ooh, that's passive voice. I need to rework that. I need to rearrange it. So you go ahead and try one. The homework will be done by me. All right. Where's the passive voice? Where's the is word? Will be done by me. Is, are, was, were, be, being, been. What's the is word? Be. All right, that's the passive voice. Now, the be after a while, it's going to jump out at you. You're going to start, oh, there's a be. There's an are, there's a was, there's a were. It's going to start jumping out at you. So how can you rephrase it so that you're eliminating the passive voice, you're making your sentence active, more clear, and you're cutting down on words? How can you get rid of the is word? The homework will be done by me. I will do the homework. All right, it's clear. It's Boom, right to the point, more concise, and you use 2 fewer words. I will do the homework instead of the homework will be done by me. It's clearer, it's active, and you're using fewer words. All right, let's try another one. The rivers of Michigan are filled by great white sharks. Okay, that's a big fat lie, but hey, that's all right. It's a grammatically correct sentence, I think. I'm not an English major, but where's the is word? The rivers of Michigan are filled by great white sharks. Are. Pirate sounds, are. The rivers of Michigan are filled by great white sharks. There's an is word. It'll start to jump out at you, or a was, a were, a be being been. All right, so you find the is word, are. How can you eliminate it? How can you rephrase that sentence so that it's clearer and it's more concise, easier to read? We need to eliminate that is word. And we can do great white sharks fill Michigan's rivers. Right? 6 words instead of 10. We can change it to rainbow trout or something like that too if you get scared of sharks. But we eliminate the is word. We rephrase the sentence. Great white sharks fill Michigan's rivers. Boom. And you've got 6 words instead of 10. It's clearer. It's easier to read. It's more concise. All right. One of the problems with passive voice is that it lets you get lazy and it lets you be vague. You know, the dog was being washed when I got home. Where's the is word? Yeah, was. All right, so it's vague. It lets you kind of skate by. You can just say the dog was being washed. Who's washing the dog? Who knows? You're not telling people. And in historical research, it kind of lets you skate by because you don't have to identify that person. You don't have to do that extra research to find out who that person was or who those people were. It's just was being. You get to be vague with it. That's not good in history or science. We want to know who were they. Now, that may take you a little more time to do the research. So you're going to have to do a little more work, a little more digging maybe, or just be more clear, more concise. Turn it to active. I got home and found Jane washing the dog. Now the reader knows. Now, when you were writing it before, you might not have known because you didn't do your research who was washing the dog. You just knew that the dog was being washed. Somebody was washing the dog, but you did a little more digging, or you just got a little clearer with your writing and you specify that it was Jane. And now the reader knows. So you're spelling everything out. The reader should know exactly who you're talking about, what you're talking about. All right, so what? Well, passive voice lets the readers misunderstand what you're saying. Now, you may know, you're very clear about it. You know that Jane was washing the dog, but you got a little sloppy, you got a little lazy, and you made it passive voice, and the reader may misunderstand that. So here's an example. All the students were, is, are, was, were, be, being, been, all the students were allowed to take a skip day from school. Well, who allowed it? You're not telling your reader, and they may jump to the wrong conclusion. All the students were allowed to take a skip day from school. I read that and I say, oh, the school administrators allowed it, the principal, the superintendent. Maybe that's not true at all. Somebody, maybe it was the parents, maybe it was the student council allowed it. Maybe the students just got together and said, we're taking a skip day. You're letting the reader jump to the wrong conclusion by not specifying, by being vague. So again, that is word, were in this case, that should jump out at you and say, oh, wait a minute, I've got to change that. I need to change that. So those are that. Eliminating passive voice is a great way to tighten up your writing, make it more clear. Some other little tricks. kill off the word very. I hate the word very. Now, English is a very, very precise language. English is a precise language. It has a lot of words. One source I saw, and I didn't really check it out, is that English has 171,000 words. So we can use them. We can get precise with our language. And so we don't need to use the word very. Erica was very hungry. Okay, that's fine. There's an is word in there too. Erica was very hungry. So what word could you trade out for very? She was very hungry. She wasn't just a little peckish. She wasn't just just a little I could use something to eat at some point. She's very hungry. So what word can we use instead of very? How about famished, ravenous, starving? Ooh, it's a little more clear. It's saying that she was very hungry without using the word very, and you get to eliminate very. So that's one word less. Now here's another trick. Get rid of the. Sometimes you can use it, that's okay. But you can, if you're really trying to tighten up your writing, you can get rid of the little phrase of the icing of the cake tasted terrible. It's grammatically correct, that's okay. But you're really trying to tighten up your writing. So how can we get rid of that? How can we change it? Well, you can make it possessive. The cake's icing tasted terrible. Says the same thing, but it's 2 fewer words on your Michigan History Day word count. So you get rid of the phrase of the, and we can use a possessive. You may not be able to do that in every case, but hey, why not save a couple of words? Well, who cares about all of this? In school, we have this thing, I have to write a 500-word essay. Oh my gosh, how can I do that? No, I need to stretch it out. Oh, I've got to get 500 words. The teacher says a minimum of 500 words. Oh, no, I can't do it. Now, in the real world, in the workplace, in Michigan History Day, certainly, what you're really trying to do is tighten that up to say all that you want to say in 500 words or 1,500 words. And you're trying to condense and you're having to leave things out. You got good stuff in there, but you don't have room for it. And so because you're up against the word count, you're hitting the ceiling of your word count. So you're thinking, instead of how do I stretch it out, you're thinking, how do I cram it all in? How can I get all of that good stuff that I researched into my word count for my exhibit or my website or whatever? I don't have enough space. Well, by getting rid of passive voice, all those is words, by eliminating very, by eliminating of the, you can start trimming down. You can save a word here or there, 2 or 3 words here and there. And after a while, by trimming that down, you have enough you have enough space in your word count for the good stuff. Yeah, we had room for the chicken and the vegetables in the stew. I was able to get that one more sentence in, that one more paragraph of really cool stuff that the judges will like, or that your writing assignment at work will write. Here at the Historical Society of Michigan, I'm always trying to get my word count down. I've got 50 words to summarize a whole book. Oof, how do I say that? So I need to make every word count. So in your projects, make every word count. How can you condense 3 books into a sentence? This is just kind of a funny example I ran across, but The Lord of the Rings, 3 great big thick books. A group spends 3 years trying to return a piece of jewelry. That's kind of it. We condensed it down to a single sentence. So you can do that. It doesn't tell much of the story, but hey, you need to make every word count. And so we get it down to a single sentence. And Ernest Hemingway, the Pulitzer Prize winning author, he was famous for writing very short, very clear, very concise books. His books, his short stories were very clear and concise. He wrote very sparingly. Oh, there's the word very. He wrote sparingly. And he used lots of action words, very few adverbs and adjectives. And so the story goes that somebody challenged him, write a complete short story in 6 words. How do you write a short story that says anything in 6 words? Just 6 words. Well, Ernest Hemingway came back the next day and he wrote this. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. It's a complete short story. There's a plot there. There's a story in that. And he's telling the whole story in 6 words. Now, your writing probably isn't going to be that condensed, but you can do it. You can make it very clear and very concise. So the summary is, tighten up your writing, get rid of the is words, get rid of is, are, was, were, be, being, been, eliminate very, see if you can get rid of the, and you're going to tighten up your writing. It's going to be clear, it's going to be concise, and you'll get the trophy for Nerd of the Year. Yay! So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thanks, Mom. Yeah. And as my mom always said, she never met an unsuccessful nerd. So that's not a bad thing to be. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and give a couple more tips and tricks for writing with your Michigan History Day project. And a lot of what Bob and what we've shared with you is going to be later on in your Michigan History Day process. Because, when you're doing your research and your writing, it's better to have a lot of stuff to pull from. And then what we're talking about is when you're getting ready to go to the contest, whether it's at your school or at the district, or even moving on to other things where you're tightening up your writing, you're tightening up what you're doing. But, don't worry about trying to do this as you're doing your research and as you're doing your project, especially some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. Better to get the information and then cut it down later once you're to that editing part of your work. So it's important that when you do writing with Michigan History Day, or usually for most school environments, that you use formal writing. And so that means you don't put contractions. So you don't have don't, you have do not. Didn't, did not. And yes, that adds more words, but it's better. It's a more formal environment, and it's more academic. No slang. Here's an example. And a lot of these examples I'm sharing with you are pulled directly from annotated bibliographies that Bob and I have seen in the past couple of years. But this person said, this history.com website gave me tons of information on the scale of the economic crisis. Well, using that word tons, it's kind of like a slang. It's not very formal. It's a little informal. So a way to fix that would just to be say the history.com website helped me learn about the scale of the economic crisis. The judges don't need to know that it was how much information was in the source, or that you used it multiple times for that kind of thing. It's more, what did you do? Get in and get out and give them the facts. Last name is better than first name if you're referring to a person, and if you're just going to refer to them by one name, but make sure that you write the complete name first. So if I'm doing my project on Rosa Parks, the first time that I talk about her, I probably want to use her full name, Rosa Parks. But then from then on out, if I wanted to shorten it to just one word, better to say Parks than Rosa. Rosa is very informal, makes it seem as if you know that person, and you may feel like you know the people in your topic after you've done so much research, but to keep it formal, you should use that person's last name. But you definitely can just use one name. You don't have to keep using the full name the whole time. It's really important in all of this, what we're talking about is that you're consistent. So whatever you kind of pick and do, stick with it and stay with it. So your Chicago, your citation style, if you're going to do Chicago or MLA, you need to use that, that system throughout both your project and your annotated bibliography. Capitalization, make sure that you're using the same type of capitalization throughout. An example I can give is one student did it on the Olympics, and sometimes they refer to Summer Olympics with capital S, capital O. Other times they call the Summer Olympics lowercase s, lowercase o. And so if you're going to use a name for something, make sure that you're consistent as you're working through your project. And you'll have to look at, is it a proper noun? It might depend on some of your citation style of what that should be, but just make sure you stick with it. People and place names. If you're going to refer to a group of people, it helps if you use the same name throughout instead of continuously changing what that is. The same thing for a place name. If you're going to do the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you should write out Upper Peninsula first and then call it UP. But you might want to just keep using UP, not going back and forth, and making sure that you're just, again, consistent. Numbers and dates. The first example there, 7th and 7th. Again, that might depend on your citation style of whether you're going to use the numerical number or whether you're going to write it out. Whatever you decide to do, we recommend that you do it the same way throughout. So don't write the number 7th and then later on refer to it as 7th. Keep it consistent, keep it the same. If it's a formal number for like a military unit or something like that, look and see what it's referred to more frequently in the sources, or if you can go to like their official website and see how they, what number they use for their title. That's a great place to look and then to stay consistent with that. And with dates, this goes with writing in your paper, in your project, but also in your annotated bibliography. Use the same format of whether you're going to use the slashes I have here, whether you're going to use dashes, if you're going to abbreviate the names of the months, what you're going to do, again, be consistent. Do it the same throughout, especially, let's say in your annotated bibliography, when you have to say what date you accessed the websites that you use for research. Every time you write that date, it should be the same format. So you don't want to have one time be 11/13/21, and then the next annotation be November 13, 2021. Be consistent. And then spacing. If you're going to put a space in between, you're going to put one space in between your annotation and the next citation, keep that consistent throughout. And again, a lot of that will play from your citation style, but make sure that you're just making it look the same, because you don't want the judges to be thinking, oh, wait a minute, how did they write 7th last time? I think they did the number, but now they wrote out the words. You don't want them thinking about that. You want them thinking about your argument and your research and your work. So by keeping it consistent, it helps them kind of focus on what's really important. Also with that, be consistent is acronyms and abbreviations for things. Don't assume your audience knows what they mean. So the first time it appears in your writing, you should write out the entire complete name and then follow with whatever the acronym or the abbreviation is in parentheses. And that lets your audience know that, okay, from here on out, when I see POW, capital P, capital O, capital W, that means prisoner of war. And although most people would know that POW is prisoner of war, you don't want to assume that. So make sure that you're writing that out. So some examples, World War II, if you're going to do it, capital W, capital W, capital I throughout, make sure you do that. Don't do it that way, and the next time it's WW and the number 2, or WW lowercase I, lowercase I. Make it consistent. This to kind of talk about is a little bit trickier because it depends on your category. But for the example, on a website where everything, you have your annotated bibliography is embedded, your process paper is embedded, and then you have like your project itself. The first time you mention that word that you're going to use acronyms or abbreviations for, you should spell it out and then put the parentheses, because you don't know where the audience is going to start with your project. So you might think, well, I'll just put it on the homepage of my website, or the very first page of the website where my audience comes and they start reading about my historical context. And that's where I'll put that World War II is WW, II. But you don't know, they might go to your process paper first, or they might go to your annotated bibliography first. So it might be best practice to spell it out and then use that acronym. Yes, I know that adds words, but it's also very helpful for your audience. So let's talk a little bit more about the annotated bibliography, because honestly, when Bob and I look at projects that advance from the state finals to the nationals, we spend a lot of our time with those annotated bibliographies. And then I know a lot of judges write comments to us about what's going on with the annotated bibliography. So we've kind of compiled a lot of that information. This is the rule taken directly from the MHD contest rulebook about annotated bibliographies. And what I want to kind of say about this before we kind of look into the details of it is the point of an annotated bibliography, the point of a bibliography in any project is so that the audience, whether it's judges or someone reading a book or someone who purchased something, a website or looked at a website online, whatever it is, that they can find that research that you put, they can find that source again if they want to look at it. And I don't mean they want to look at it to check your work. I mean that they want to look at it to maybe learn more about it. And so those bibliographies and putting out where they can find that will enable them to learn more about it if they want. And I know Bob has talked about this oftentimes, that your Michigan History Day project, a big project like this, a research project, is kind of like a science experiment where you should be able to recreate the steps of the experiment. Well, your audience should be able to kind of recreate your research and find it and get to it and access it. So your job when you're doing this bibliography is to make that easy for the judges to do. And so we're going to talk about some of those things that will help with that. But the basic rules that MHD says is you have to list all the sources that you consult. They talk about that you can combine photos if they're from the same collection. Instead of doing a different citation for every single picture in that collection, you can put them and do a single citation for the group. And they have some good examples at nhd.org/annotated-bibliography. You have to separate your bibliography into two sections, one for primary sources and one for secondary sources. You cannot put a source, the same source, in both lists. You have to pick which one it is, and you have to give that argument for it. Don't attach any primary or secondary materials to your annotated bibliography. And the good news is your annotated bibliography does not count in your word count. And as we said with other stuff, be consistent when you're working with your annotated bibliography and how you're doing it. So you want to make it easy for the judges to find the information they need. So the annotations allow you to give a little bit of additional information to the judges for them to understand about that source. But the purpose of that is to provide that information about your process, not to give like more analysis or to get around the word count and give them more information in that way. So each annotation must be no more than 2 or 3 sentences long. And what you need to focus on in that annotation is how you use the source and how the source helped you understand the topic. That's it. That's what you need to put in there. The only exception is, let's say, if you have a source that you're not sure, and it's been kind of challenging to determine whether it's a primary source or a secondary source, as part of that 2 to 3 sentence annotation, you don't get extra sentences for this. you could explain why you said that source was a primary source or a secondary source, but you don't do that on every single source. It's just those that might be a little bit trickier or may not be a more typical source. And one of our sessions earlier today, the librarian gave some really good examples of those sources that can be kind of challenging. So let's look at an annotation from an actual project. The citation is right across at the top of it. And then their citation is 3 sentences long, but I would argue that one of these sentences can go. One of the sentences of these 3 doesn't have to be in here. So I'm going to read it just so thinking about sentence 1, sentence 2, and sentence 3, which one would you get rid of? This photograph is of students during the 1963 Chicago public school boycott. Many high school students left school to protest discrimination just a few hundred miles away from Grand Rapids and about 4 years before the mustache controversy. It helped us understand what other boycotts might have been influencing the South High students, and we used it to help demonstrate the context in which the controversy occurred. So think about sentence 1, sentence 2, or sentence 3. Which one would you get rid of? And again, yes, it's 3 sentences, so it's technically within there, but just because you can doesn't mean you should use those 3 sentences every single time. So I would say the second sentence is the one you can get rid of. It's too much information. It's giving information that we don't need to know. We know it's what it is, right? The photograph of the students is of it's 1963 Chicago, the boycott. And then it helped us understand what other boycotts might have been influencing the South High students, and we use it to help demonstrate. So they kind of explain what it is and what they learned from it. And that's all they need to say. That sentence was extra and they don't need to have it in there. So just, it's a better annotation. Doesn't mean it's the other one was wrong. It's just a better annotation if it's just that information, because these judges are reading a bunch of these different bibliographies. And so we want to help them find the information they really need so that your point is getting across and your argument is getting made. Website sources are a little extra. A lot of people use those, and those have some extra special things that sometimes people forget, but it's really important. You should not hyperlink to the website. And that might be a little counterintuitive because I'm saying, well, the point of a bibliography is to help people easily find the sources. So yeah, well, why not make it easy and hyperlink, and they could just click and go to the hyperlink. But the rules say that none of those URLs should be hyperlinked, and that's probably has to do with the citation and whether you're doing MLA or Chicago. So just remove that hyperlink. And I know it goes in there automatically, but you can highlight it, right click on it, and remove hyperlink to get it out of there. And also, you have to include the date you access the website. So please keep track of that while you're researching. Every single time you use a website as a source, it should say accessed on and the date, or you can word it any way you want. Again, be consistent with how you do your date and how you word it, but make sure that it's on there. And it's easier to do that while you're going along than to try and think back in January, which websites you were looking at in late October or mid-October. So keep track of that while you're doing your research and make it a lot easier. Stick to the facts. Here's a sample of an annotation saying how this film gave me a lot of information I already knew. However, it showed me a lot of visuals and was very influential in my choice of website. That's information that the judges don't really need to know. They don't really need to know what you knew before. So you could replace that highlighted text with the short documentary film, produced by the lab, helped support my research. End of sentence. It showed me a lot of visuals and was very influential in my web choice. And really, you don't necessarily need that, but it explains that you use a lot of visuals in what you did. Another one, this very large book arrived from an interlibrary loan right before our project was due, but we were able to have a quick look and use some of the photos during the siege. That's a whole lot of information that the judges don't need, right? You're saying how you use a source and what you learned from it. This book provided photos of Shostakovich and Leningrad during the siege. That's all that you need to do, and that's all the judges need to know. Past tense is best for annotations. A lot of times when I'm reading through annotations in a bibliography, I'll see things like we will use this image, or we will use this page, or we think we might use this page. If they're reading about it and that means your project's pretty much done and you've done it, right? You've already used the image. What do you mean you will use it? I saw it on the page. So again, be more direct. We use this image of Richard Pfeiffer on our context page as an example of someone who falsely identified an influenza cure. So I'm saying what I learned from it and how I used it in my project. And again, I can do that in one sentence. I don't have to add 2 more sentences. Boom, I've got it done in 1. Another thing is to start the annotation on a new line. So in the example at the top, at the end here where it says accessed 23rd October 2020, then they did a space and I use this source. What I've heard from judges and in my experience of looking at annotated bibliographies, it's helpful if you start your annotation on a new line. That way the judges can quickly see, okay, this is the citation and this is the annotation. And that helps them kind of focus it and get the information quickly and easily for your audience. Again, be consistent with how you do this though. Don't do some of them where it keeps going and some of them where you put on the new line. If you're going to make that decision to do it throughout. All right, that is it for ones I had. Bob, did you have anything to add to that, or had you thought of anything else?
Nope, sounded great, Amy.
All right. So if there are any questions, go ahead and put them in to the comment box. Other than that, we'll say I'm not seeing anything in there. So, or you can unmute yourself. But we appreciate you guys joining the call today, or watching this video if you're watching it after the fact. But you can always reach out to librarians with questions about bibliographies and citations, but History Day is a little different than some of the other ones. So you may want to start with that teacher and then can go from there and coming back and you can always ask us at Michigan History Day at hsmichigan.org. Bob shared his email address in the chat for those of you who are live, but you can always find us if you need us. All right, thank you and have a great day.